All right, so today we're going to be talking about attitudes, what they are, how we use them, how we affect, or how they affect our lives. So yeah, let's dive right in. Take a look at it. So over the course of a couple days, I decided to observe myself ultimately in my attitude. I could have chosen somebody else. I could have chosen a couple of my coworkers, or even my roommates. I do have 4 roommates, and they would have been an interesting study and kind of fun one to watch their attitudes change throughout the day. But I do work a 40-hour week on top of being a student pastor, and so therefore it makes it a little bit harder to observe anybody but myself. So for this, I chose myself, and I did this over a couple of days just because I wanted to make sure that it wasn't just one day or a bad day that affected my attitude, or even just a good day that affected my attitude. There was kind of some consistency and baseline in order to go off of and to judge my attitude and my decisions for this presentation moving forward. So overall, my attitude, it was interesting to watch that it did change. I was expecting to be fairly consistent, fairly stagnant with my attitude. However, it was interesting to see that it did change over time. It wasn't dramatic changes. It wasn't massive mood swings from highs to lows. But it did change. And ultimately what it seemed to change was from various things around me. For example, when I received one of the packages of something that I ordered online, when I received those items, it was great. I had a great attitude. I was super happy, super excited, and overall my day was good, and my attitude in that moment was also good. Or even hanging out with some of my friends. We've gone to see, we watched the Best Picture nominees during this time before the Oscars come out to see, I don't know, just because we enjoy movies overall. And hanging out with them is always a great time, and I have a great attitude because of that. Even if the movie is bad, I still spent time with some of my closest friends, and I have a good attitude because of that. Now the inverse of that was also true. I work in insurance, and there are times when people will get upset at me for things that aren't my fault. For example, someone forgot to pay their bill, they get a notice of cancellation, they call me upset that their insurance is canceling, and I have to tell them that they didn't pay their bill. They're not too thrilled about that. And in fact, I got yelled at for that. Now, my attitude in that moment, it wasn't great. I'm not going to lie. It was a little angry, a little upset, because it wasn't my fault. It wasn't something that I had control over that I could do. So my attitudes did change from time to time. Now, for the most part, they stayed relatively, stable, as there wasn't dramatic switches, but it was interesting to see that they did change. Now, the theory as to why, there's a lot of different theories out there, but ultimately, these are 3 theories from someone named Kindred Cherry in her article. Now, her article was medically reviewed by Dr. Stephen Granz, and then before it was published, but she gave 3 theories: the learning theory, elaboration theory, and dissonance theory. The learning theory is kind of what it sounds like. We're learning and observing those around us and the attitudes of those around us, and kind of taking in information from the stimuli that's going on around us in our area, and that is what is informing our attitude. That is how we determine what our attitude is moving forward. The elaboration theory is it's like being persuaded, right? It's being told or persuaded how your attitude should be, not from things around us, but rather from someone specifically, someone specifically, really, that it is them who is persuading how our theory should go. And then the dissonance theory is much like cognitive dissonance. It kind of plays into that in the sense that it's, when there's struggle or conflict in struggling and conflicts between our thoughts, our attitude begins to become a little bit sour, as we are struggling within ourselves, right? And so that is what changes our attitudes, because we don't necessarily know what to do with ourselves. Therefore, we don't really know what to do with our attitudes. Now, for me personally, my theory is that ultimately our attitudes, they're a reaction to what's around us. They're a reaction to the things that we do in our day-to-day lives. Because our lives are so random, and so there's so many variables about it, it becomes hard to actually say that there's certain things that are what's happening around us is not going to affect our attitudes, right? You get good news, you're going to be happy. You get bad news, you're going to be sad. Things start to stay the same, you're probably going to stay the same in your attitude. Now, overall, it is my opinion, as well as that it's a reaction to what's around us, that it ultimately comes down to a choice, right? When we get to choose our attitude that we have, rather than just reacting to what's around us, right? We should never react, we should always respond. And so, therefore, the response should also be in our attitude. Even if it's a fight with ourselves, right? When that lady yelled at me and I got upset, and she was upset with me over something I couldn't control, I was, of course, angry at first, but I still had to choose to have a good attitude for the rest of the day and not let it ruin my day, not let it ruin my life. So I still had a choice in that matter, and still had a choice in how my attitude went moving forward. And then biblically speaking, it is a choice. You see it in a couple different times, both in Old and New Testament. You know, in Proverbs, you see a joyful heart is good medicine, but a crushed spirit dries up the bones. And both of these come out of the ESV. But Proverbs 17:22 says that, right? We get to choose a joyful heart. We get to choose the joy that fills us up and that kind of keeps us going and keeps us alive. And then in Colossians, Paul says, you know, whatever you do, work wholeheartedly as for the Lord, not for men, right? Part of working wholeheartedly is choosing to find joy, is choosing to have a good attitude, is choosing to just be happy around what the work we have. Even though work sucks, because work does suck, we still get to choose the attitude we have about it, and we should choose a good one, right? So choose joy. So attitudes, yeah, that's what I have on attitudes there. Thank you so much, and have a great night.